Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video. Today we're about to go over my top 30 running back rankings for this upcoming 2023 fantasy football season. Some names on here you might not expect to be on this list, and others you probably do expect. There'll be some shockers, so just a forewarning. If you guys are new to this channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button, and of course at the end, if you enjoy the content, drop a thumbs up. All right, so the first running back up on our list today in S tier is going to be Christian McCaffrey. Listen, I think he is the best receiving back in all of football. He's on a much better overall offense than he ever was in the past on the Panthers. I mean, the 49ers are putting up so many more points than the Panthers ever did in the past. Wouldn't shock me at all if McCaffrey finished as the #1 overall running back at the end of 2023. And I think his big game potential is just slightly more than Eckler's, so that's why I have McCaffrey at #1, and #2 is actually Austin Eckler on this list, also in S tier. He averaged over 20 PPR fantasy points the last 2 seasons. He's coming off his best season yet in terms of rushing yards and receiving targets. Now, I expect him to get a lot of work out of the backfield, but another reason that I do have McCaffrey over Eckler is that Justin Herbert wasn't healthy fully 100% at all last season. So Eckler might have gotten more targets due to the fact that Herbert was a little bit injured. I'm not too sure. This could mean less targets for Eckler, more targets for Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Quentin Johnson as the season progresses, but we'll just have to see how that plays out. Now, dropping it down a tier here, this could be argued that he could be put in S tier as well, but we have Bijan Robinson. Listen, he was the first-round pick for the Falcons for a reason. They better use him about 20 to 25 times per game. He should be a bell cow running back for this team. He's also a good pass catcher. They got him lining up all over the field in training camp. I expect him to be everywhere on the field. Rookie running backs have a tendency to finish in the top 5 if they go in the first round of fantasy drafts, so I don't see anything changing here. I think that's a very high possibility. Also, he was drafted to the team the #1 rushing attempts in 2022. I expect a lot of the same in this upcoming season, which could also spell trouble for Drake London and Kyle Pitts again, if you're worried about those guys, sadly. #4 on our list, also in A tier, is going to be Nick Chubb. I mean, he has the potential, in my opinion, to finish as the #1 running back in fantasy football if everything goes right. He's coming off his best rushing year yet. He should see more passing work with Kareem Hunt gone. That's a huge positive for him. Kareem Hunt being gone should give him a much larger workload, even though he did great with the work that he got last season. Now, the only red flag here for Nick Chubb is that he played worse with Deshaun Watson than he did with Jacoby Brissett, so hopefully they can get on the same page here, and they can both thrive in this offense. #5 on our list today, Saquan Barkley. He has always been a consistent fantasy option when he's been healthy. He's the star player of this New York Giants team. They have no #1 receiver. I mean, Isaiah Hodgins, Jalen Hyatt, we got Paris Campbell, Darius Slayton, I believe. So who is going to be the #1 wide receiver for that team? And then followed by Saquon Barkley. You never even know. You never know. Nothing would surprise me at this point with the New York Giants. He's coming off the most rushing yards of his entire career last season, and he's going in the first round of fantasy drafts at the end of the first round for a good reason. If you can snag him in the early second round, if you haven't drafted already, I think it's an absolute steal there. #6, Josh Jacobs. We finally got news that he agreed to a 1-year deal. I'm not worried about Jacobs at all at this point. I think if you got him in the 3rd round of your draft, because of that uncertainty in the past month or two, then you made a great decision, and it's about to pay off massively for you. He catches a lot of passes and doesn't really have any competition in the backfield to worry about. I mean, Zamir White is the only one back there that could really, even give him a challenge, but he's not losing his role anytime soon. Don't worry about that whatsoever. And then he had his breakout season last year, obviously led the league in rushing with over 1,600 yards on the ground. I'd expect him to sit around that 1,500 yard mark again. If I'm not, I might be too optimistic on him, but I think he could finish around that mark, and Las Vegas is going to need him to carry this offense once again, especially if Jimmy G struggles this season. #7 on this list, Tony Pollard. I think Pollard will be amazing this season, and I could also see him finishing as the #1 overall running back in fantasy if things go according to plan. Now, no Zeke anymore to hold this guy back, all right? I think the past couple of years, they should have just let Pollard cook, and they just had Zeke taking all those goal line carries. I get it. You're paying him a lot of money. It makes sense. And you're putting Zeke out here splitting carries with a guy that's absolutely explosive, but it was holding him back. Okay, he's a solid receiving option as well, and I do think the Cowboys are going to score a lot of points in this upcoming year. I wouldn't be surprised, like I said, at all if Pollard goes off. Number 8 here, we have Derrick Henry. I can't put Henry any lower than this simply because of his brute strength and almost guaranteed touchdowns that he will get near the goal line. Age is obviously certainly going to catch up with this guy at some point in time. The question is, when is that going to happen? The reason that I have him here at number 8 and not any higher is I just can't justify taking him in front of players like Tony Pollard, Bijan Robinson, especially higher up on this list, or even Josh Jacobs at this point in his career. If he was a little bit younger, then sure, but not right now. Number 9, Jonathan Taylor. There's so much uncertainty here. We should get news on Tuesday. I'm making this video on Monday, so if news comes out after, then so be it. But I'm assuming that Taylor ends up staying with the Colts, and this is where I have him ranked on this list. If he stays with the Colts, I don't think his motivation is going to be too high considering everything that's happened in this offseason. Taylor is on the field. He's an amazing option, but I think there's too much risk this year, in my opinion. If you can get Jonathan Taylor in that second, third round, and he's, gets traded, that's an amazing value. But if he stays on the Colts and doesn't have much motivation to perform at his highest ability, not loving Taylor in this upcoming season. I'd rather a lot of other options. Number 10 on our list today, Travis Etienne. Doug Peterson expects Etienne to have a much larger role this upcoming season. He can see him getting around 1,600 to 1,700 yards. Jags offense as a whole should also be a lot better in this upcoming year, which should in turn make Etienne better, especially if they can get out to leads early this season. He's going to be great for your fantasy team. We expect him to get a lot more passing yards as well, or receiving yards, that is, out of the backfield where he wasn't really utilized as much as he was in college. I'm not really too worried about Tank Bigsby taking up that many carries, even though a lot of people seem to be turned off of Etienne for that reason. And also, he didn't really even get going until week number 7 of last year, because if you remember, James Robinson actually started with that role. He was injured in his first season, so we really didn't even get a full season of Etienne work. If we do, I think Peterson's right, and he gets around 1,600 yards. I really want to see what he can do on an explosive Jaguars team here. Number 11 on this list, Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, he's the Kamara archetype, all right, who is extremely good at catching passes. I think the Lions are going to score a lot of points this year, just like I think the Jags are going to score a lot of points. I think these two are very comparable. I think Gibbs is a bit more explosive, especially in the passing game. He's going to be used all over the field. Hopefully, the Lions use him correctly. I think he has the potential to finish in the top 5 in his rookie season. So if you can get this guy in dynasty drafts, I'd go all in. I'd go all in on trading for this guy. I think he's going to be a stud in the future. That's why I have him at number 11. But keep your expectations a little lower so he can outperform them very easily. All right, at number 12 here, we do have Ramondre Stevenson. Coming into the season, I had Ramondre ranked in the top 10. I can't really justify that anymore since Zeke has signed there. I'm going to give him a slight downgrade to number 12 here, but I still think he dominates carries. I think he dominates pass catching out of the backfield for running backs. It's not even a question in my mind if that'll happen. He's a great pass catcher on an overall pretty bad offense. If we're talking in terms of receivers, they have Juju, Tyquan Thornton, and then I don't even know who else they have on that team, to be totally honest with you. Fantasy viable options are out the window after those two guys. He averaged 14.7 PPR fantasy points per game last season, with Harris stealing some carries. So Zeke doing the same exact thing, I would imagine, is not really going to affect those numbers too much. Next up, Nji Harris at number 13. Everything looked so promising in his rookie year in 2021, and then he was drafted way too early in 2022. I think he was going in the first round in almost every single draft, and people who picked Harris in that first round got bit in the butt pretty hard. Now you can get Najee at a discount in the 4th round of most drafts, maybe even 5th if he falls that far, but most of the time it's going to be in the 4th round. And with an overall better Steelers team, or what I'm expecting to be an overall better Steelers team in this upcoming season, I'm going to take the risk on Najee. Take him as your RB2 potentially, and if he exceeds your expectations, he could break into that RB1 range by midseason. I like the chances. The only red flag is slight red flag. I'm not even fully raising the flag here, is that Jaylen Warren could get a bit more work. I still think Najee has that number 1 role on lock right now, though. Similar situation here with Aaron Jones, another guy that you can get at a discount compared to previous seasons where he was going in rounds 1 and 2. Now he's going in rounds 3 and 4 in most drafts. If Jordan Love struggles at all, especially in the beginning of the year, I can see him dishing it off to Aaron Jones a lot. And Aaron Jones is known to have that big play potential that we love to see in fantasy players. He's clearly still a lot more explosive than A.J. Dillon, who is probably going to be used for that goal line type of work. But they can both have solid years. We've seen this in the past, and I expect more of the same this year from these Packers running backs. Number 15 on our list today is Joe Mixon. You guys might be surprised, why do you not have this guy higher up on your list? Listen, I think Joe Mixon is a very safe fantasy football option on a very high-scoring Cincinnati Bengals football team. Now, this is a guy that probably won't end up as the running back number 1 overall in fantasy football, but he will sit around the top 12 most of the year if he is healthy. Now, a lot of his points last season came in week number 9, where he dropped 55 PPR fantasy points against the Carolina Panthers. He scored 4 touchdowns. The rest of the time, I'd probably expect about 12 to 15 fantasy points from Joe Mixon, so he is a solid running back number 2 on your fantasy team this year. Number 16, Bree Hall. Later on in the year, I expect Bree Hall to be top 10, but overall rankings, I have him at 16. I just have concerns early on about him being eased into this offense. They got Dalvin Cook. How much are they going to use Dalvin Cook? We do not know any of this information just yet. He is the most explosive player on this team, along with Garrett Wilson, I believe. Once he's fully healed from that ACL injury and surgery, I think he's going to be an absolute weapon in the future for sure. Jets passing game should also be a lot better this season, which should in turn open up more holes for Hall and Cook in this backfield. Now, coming in at number 17, I think I have a little bit of a sleeper pick here, especially on ESPN. He's going as overall number 53 on ESPN. Kenneth Walker, the third. I think way too many people are sleeping on K9 this season because of, Charbonnet signing to Seattle. What did he do last season? He had over 1,000 yards last season as a 22-year-old. People are way too worried, in my opinion, about Charbonnet taking these carries when I think Charbonnet is going to be used more in the passing game, and Walker will continue to see that work on the ground. If you can get him in the 5th or 6th round in fantasy drafts this season, even the 7th round, then I really like his potential. Like I said, I think he's being slept on this season. Now, at number 18 here, we have Rashad White. Now, White is the only solid running back option on this Bucs offense. Baker Mayfield, we've seen in the past, likes to dump the ball off a lot to his running backs, and they're going to be down a lot of the time, if I'm not mistaken. They're not projected to win too many games, and White is a great receiving option on this team. He's going to be on the field on those 3rd down and long, so you don't have to worry about him coming off, maybe getting 2 down work and then coming off. He is not going to be doing that. He's going to get 3 downs almost every single drive. He is only going this low, personally, and he's only ranked this low because of how bad the team overall is. All right, he's not the most efficient on the ground, averaging 3.7 yards per carry in his rookie season, but you're drafting this guy for his receiving upside. So in PPR leagues, he's going to be going higher. Number 19, Alexander Madison. I might be a little bit low on Madison. All right, first year seeing a full workload as the number 1 running back of a football team. Now, a lot of people seem worried about how he's going to handle that. If you are believing in Madison and believing what he can do in the future, then I'd be buying into him. This is the season to do so. You could use that to your advantage if you do believe in this guy. The team should score a lot of points. All right, this is a Minnesota Vikings team that is going to put up numbers. They have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, Kirk the GOAT Cousins. All right, they're going to put up a lot of points. And if Dalvin Cook was any indication of how running backs can do in this offense, he's going to thrive this season. All right, running back number 20 on our list today. I think this is a little bit of a sleeper pick when I'm taking a look at other tier lists online. I don't even see this guy listed. J.K. Dobbins, he's being disrespected by a lot of creators here. We haven't really seen too much of a healthy J.K. Dobbins in his career up to this point. He's going way higher up on the board in sleeper than he is in ESPN. ESPN is just disrespecting the crap out of him with their ADP that he has listed. Now, the reports are saying that he's healthy and 100% this season, and with a revamped Ravens offense, this could be the year that he takes a step forward. He's going to be a great 1-2 punch with Lamar in that backfield. Not to mention, the Ravens also have a top 5 O-line in the entire National Football League. All right, number 21 on our list, we have Dalvin Cook. Now, I'm not 100% sure, just like every other creator in the space here, how much work Dalvin Cook is going to get. But I do know that he should be more involved in this offense in the beginning of the season, and if he does play well, that role will continue into the later portion of the season, with Bree Hall being, eased back into this offense. He was great on Minnesota every year that he was there. He was a solid fantasy option. I wouldn't expect, much different this season. It would be a completely different situation if he was going to a shitty team, but he's going to the Jets to compete. He's going to play at the highest possible level that he can. Personally, I'm expecting around 10 to 15 fantasy points per game, maybe throughout the entire season. That's what we get out of Dalvin Cook. I'm happy with it. All right, number 22, Damen Pierce. Personally, I like him as a player, but I think the situation here is absolutely horrible. If teams are smart, they're going to stack the box on the Texans and make CJ Stroud throw the ball a lot more than he wants to. They have no good receivers on this team. Nico Collins, John Mechie could have a bounce-back season here, but I'm not really too sure about it. All right, and Damen Pierce isn't known to catch too many passes in this offense, which clearly limits his ability in PPR leagues, especially. And above all else, the Texans also have a below-average offensive line. So not crazy about the situation. Love the player. If he ever gets traded, he's getting bumped up a lot, but I just can't put him any higher as of right now just because of that situation. Number 23, Miles Sanders. Everybody's hyping up Sanders, all right? But the truth is he signed with a struggling franchise, in my opinion, that is banking on Bryce Young producing massive numbers right away. I don't think that's going to happen. I think this is a very similar situation to Damen Pierce, where, obviously in this situation with Miles Sanders, he has a better O-line. But the fact that teams are going to stack the box and make Young throw doesn't benefit Sanders whatsoever. I think they paid way too much money for this guy that looked amazing on an Eagles team that had the number 1 offensive line in the entire league. Pretty much anybody on this list could have ran behind that O-line and put up the stats that Sanders did, in my opinion. If he proves me wrong, then great. If he proves me wrong, then I apologize sincerely, Miles Sanders, but I just don't think he's going to be that good. Number 24 here, James Cook on the Buffalo Bills. I might have James Cook a little too low, strictly based off him being on the Bills. They could either let him thrive and run the ball a good amount, or they could be the Bills and be up 50 points and not run the ball at all, which I think they're going to do the latter portion. I think even when they're dominating games, they still like to pass. That's just how Josh Allen rolls. All right, the Bills are a team that's going to pass every single minute of every single quarter. Now, his pass catching ability definitely makes him intriguing in my mind, but I can't seem to remember the last time the Bills had a fantasy relevant running back, maybe dating back to LaShawn McCoy in 2017. So if James Cook can take that role and be that starting Bills running back that gets, 15, 20 fantasy points per game, then by all means, I would love to see it. But as of right now, I'm not the biggest believer. Number 25, Javante Williams here. 2 things that jump off the board as worrying with Javante. Number 1 is that ACL injury. He's coming back from it. He seems to be fully healthy. All right. He seems to be fully recovered according to every article in the books, which is a great sign. Second is the fact that the Broncos are going to struggle in the beginning of the season, especially without Jerry Jeudy. I do think the Broncos have to somewhat improve with Russell Wilson being here in his second year, but they looked terrible last year. All right, I don't know if I could sit through that many Broncos games yet again. He could be the steal of your draft very easily in the 7th, 8th round, or he could be another wasted pick on your team and not do absolutely anything. But I think the risk is worth it here. At number 25, Javante Williams could finish top 15 if everything goes right for him. Number 26 on our list, we have DeAndre Swift. Now, he's behind the best offensive line in the entire league with the Eagles. He's a great pass catcher, but I think he wasn't utilized correctly in the past with Detroit. He had some injury concerns coming into this season, but if he stays healthy, he has great potential. He's a very effective runner. Philly does tend to lean towards, multiple running back options. If they stick with Swift as that number 1 guy, I would love to see that, but I think he might get used a little more in the passing game than the running game. That's why they have Rashad Penny and also Kenneth Gainwell. We'll have to see how that situation pans out. Number 27 here, Cam Akers. I'm definitely too low on Cam Akers, but I couldn't put him any higher. Listen, he's expected to play a larger role in this offense. I'm expecting this team to overall be pretty poor, though. They're expected 4.5 wins, I believe, by Vegas. Vegas is usually pretty accurate on this front. They don't have too many options. Like, they have Cooper Kupp, Tyler Higbee, Cam Akers, and then Van Jefferson. All right, not too many great options on this team, but he should get the goal line work here in Los Angeles. So Cam Akers, not the worst option in the world, but I wouldn't be going crazy if I'm drafting him either. Number 28 here, just a solid, reliable fantasy guy, James Conner. He's on another really bad offense. I think this is going to be one of the worst teams in the National Football League in this upcoming season. Like I said, he's very consistent when you draft him. You're expecting a large workload out of this guy, all right? He needs to get around 20 carries per game to be effective in this offense, but he's also a great pass catcher out of the backfield. So the team is really the only thing that's turning me off completely out of James Conner. I don't think I've drafted him much at all in either my mock drafts, best ball leagues, doesn't matter, redraft leagues. If you want to take this guy as a very safe running back too, like I said, then be my guest. Number 29 on our list today is Isaiah Pacheco. Now listen, I really like Isaiah Pacheco as a player, but I would love him if McKinnon was not in Kansas City. He would get bumped up massively on my list. He's on one of the highest scoring offenses in the entire league here. Andy Reid loves the guy. Hopefully he's going to get the goal line work, but you never know with Kansas City. That's why I'm a little bit hesitant. You know, they do those trick plays. They throw it to tight ends. They throw it to offensive linemen. Mahomes will run it in. McKinnon's going to get the score. So you never know who's going to score at the 1 yard line on this offense. If it was another team and Pacheco was getting that goal line work every single time, then I think he gets bumped up this list as well. But it's just about the situation here. Hopefully in the future, he can be a fantasy stud, though. And last but not least on my list, we have Alvin Kamara. I have him at number 30. If it weren't for the 3-game suspension, I would have him around the top 15 personally. But he had a very disappointing last season, all right? Expecting a bounce back with Derek Carr at quarterback. The team isn't the best, but they have a very easy schedule, I will say. So they should be up in a lot of games this year. Derek Carr also has everything to prove. And if he plays well enough, it'll open up the run game for Kamara and his pass catching ability out of the backfield. You're getting him at a discount, all right? Obviously, suspended for 3 games, we know that. But if you're playing for later on in the season and you draft accordingly so that you can win in your championship week, I think Kamara is a great add to your team. Now, I did debate putting Antonio Gibson on this list along with Brian Robinson, but I couldn't really find room for them. I do think they're both going to play pretty well and definitely have the potential to finish at least in the top 25, if not top 20 in your fantasy league. So if you end up with either of those guys on your roster as well, I'm not hating it. Anyways, guys, if you agreed or disagreed with anything on this list, make sure to comment down below. And also, if you did enjoy, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you're new. I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.